When the lights go out in Qatar and 24 engines inhale the same breath of destiny, one sound will cut through them all, the raw, untamed heartbeat of Toprak Razgatlıoğlu. A man forged in the violent poetry of braking zones, stepping into a universe where instinct meets algorithm and courage is measured in tenths. His journey from the asphalt jungles of WorldSBK to MotoGP's titanium temples isn't a transfer. It's an exorcism. The familiar R1 symphony is gone. In its place roars Yamaha's newborn V4, unpredictable, brilliant, still bleeding through its own rebirth. The bike doesn't yet know his language, and Toprak must teach it through the grammar of feel, through lean angles that defy geometry and braking markers that flirt with oblivion. Here, 1 millimeter too late is disaster, and 1 degree too early is surrender. His hands, once conductors of chaos, now sculpt data into faith. His number, his team, his world, all stripped away, leaving only a man, a machine, and a silence before acceleration. Every corner will question his identity. Every lap will test if artistry can survive inside machinery that breathes logic instead of emotion. The Yamaha's telemetry may record pressure, torque, and velocity, but it will never capture the tremor in his heart as carbon discs ignite under his fingertips. I don't ride with numbers. I ride with feeling. That defiance is his weapon, his signature, his sin. Because in this new galaxy of wings, sensors, and surgical precision, Toprak rides like a meteor refusing to be charted. He's not here to adapt, he's here to disrupt. And when the first race begins, the world will witness not just a debut, but collision between science and soul. This isn't a rider joining MotoGP. It's MotoGP meeting emotion at 350 kilometers per hour, where telemetry ends and legend begins. And as the engines scream toward dawn, that collision between science and soul becomes the opening act of Toprak Razgatlıoğlu's reckoning, a story that begins not with triumph, but with the courage to face the storm of MotoGP itself. Under the burning lights of a MotoGP paddock that smells of rubber and destiny, Toprak Razgatlıoğlu stands between two worlds, the past that crowned him and the future that dares him to fall. Cameras flash, but his eyes are elsewhere, somewhere between pride and doubt, between Yamaha Blue and the unknown horizon of Pramac Satellite Garage. He knows this step isn't just a change of bike. It's a dissection of identity. Maybe I'll struggle to get into the top 10, he murmurs later, his voice half lost beneath the hum of dyno engines. Inside, another voice whispers louder. What if my magic doesn't work here? Every champion meets the edge of reinvention, and his begins with titanium brake dust and the cold precision of data engineers recalibrating hope. The paddock talks in kilowatts and milliseconds, but Toprak feels it in heartbeats and silence. His leap from superbikes to MotoGP isn't a promotion, it's a storm. Yamaha's new V4, still raw and twitching with instability, awaits him like a nervous animal, powerful but untrained. He remembers the BMW's brutish torque, the Yamaha R1's grace, and wonders which instincts to trust now. This is the cruel symmetry of progress. You conquer one world, only to start again as a student in another. A little-known technical note lingers in his thoughts, the V4's asymmetric firing order that complicates rear traction during corner exits, a detail that could define or destroy his rhythm. Toprak's style, built on impossibly late braking, now faces the geometry of a universe where wings bite the air and computers decide fate. His engineers talk of simulation models, he talks of feeling. There is poetry in that clash, a human pulse beneath the algorithms. In one moment, he imagines his debut start, lights flickering, breath caught, his career suspended like a note waiting to drop. The crowd will see courage. He will feel weight. MotoGP is not kind to rookies, not even to gods of another land. Yet every revolution begins with surrender, and every throttle twist carries a confession. He takes a long breath, the smell of burnt fuel thick and sweet, and smiles with quiet defiance. For all his fears, he knows this truth. The hardest victories are those fought against oneself. The Yamaha garage hums like a laboratory of controlled chaos, filled with whispers of doubt disguised as data. Engineers stare at screens that glow with numbers but no salvation, their V4 still trembling at the edge of competitiveness. After years chained to the polite precision of the inline-4, the new engine growls differently, rougher, unpredictable, like an animal learning to walk. Toprak listens to it idle for the first time, hearing not power but possibility wrapped in imperfection. It's fast, yes, but not yet alive, one technician confides, and the honesty slices through the optimism. Beneath the glossy carbon, Yamaha's heart beats out of sync, chasing Ducati's ghosts and Aprilia's new science of airflow. In 2025, both factory and satellite teams languished at the bottom, victims of ambition colliding with reality. The aerodynamic package still produces drag during lean transitions, robbing them of acceleration and soul. A little-known detail haunts every debrief. The crankshaft's counter-rotating inertia destabilizes the rear under aggressive braking, confusing even the best telemetry. Is this really the machine I'll trust with my name? Toprak wonders as he walks past mechanics, their faces drawn tight under fluorescent fatigue. He knows that Yamaha's story now depends on him not winning, but surviving the data. Each lap in 2026 will be an autopsy of progress, every mistake a new line in the engine's diary. The V4 is not ready for war, but it is ready for him, and that's enough for now. He imagines its vibrations under his palms like a new language waiting to be learned. Pramac Yamaha's garage smells of oil and rebirth, yet its hope is brittle, thin as the aluminum that binds its frame. We'll give him the full V4, no distractions, says Managing Director Paolo Pavizio, his tone pragmatic but proud. In a world ruled by tenths of a second, expectations shrink to survival. This is Yamaha's unfinished symphony, played on pistons that still hesitate at full song. If it can't make it sing, maybe I'll teach it to breathe, he thinks quietly. And in that thought, the story of his 2026 begins, not with speed, but with faith. Because even broken engines dream of redemption. When Toprak rolls onto the MotoGP asphalt, the air feels heavier, the silence before ignition almost sacred. Every vibration, every flicker of telemetry, every engineer's glance carries the weight of expectation disguised as curiosity. Here, adaptation is a battlefield of decimals and instincts, where style must bow before science. His superbike habits, those beautiful defiant slides and impossibly late brakings, now flirt with disaster. What if my hands remember what the tires can't forgive? He thinks, adjusting the lever that once defined him. Michelin's compounds are narrower in temperament, demanding precision instead of passion. Ducati insiders whisper that his extreme braking could overload the front tire, turning genius into chaos. Toprak must unlearn his reflexes to become faster. One of them says, not unkindly. It's true, he has to dismantle himself piece by piece to fit into MotoGP's mechanical rhythm. Yamaha doesn't ask him to win. It asks him to translate sensation into data. That is the cruel poetry of progress. Your intuition measured, your courage graphed. A little-known technical adjustment hides inside his setup. Engineers will modify the brake pressure curve to mimic Pirelli's progressive feel, softening his first touch to save the front. The bike feels alien, sharper, heavier in acceleration yet hollow in its feedback. His braking points, once symphonies of chaos, now feel like delicate surgery on glass. Every test lap becomes confession and correction, a fragile dance between instinct and obedience. In the corners, his mind races faster than the bike, trying to find meaning in the numbers flashing on the dashboard. He recalls his own voice in a quiet moment. The first year is for learning, not winning. But in that admission lies rebellion. Learning for him has never meant surrender. The mechanics watch, understanding that he is fighting something unseen, the physics of ego. The metaphor lives in motion, a comet slowing down just enough not to burn itself out. When the day ends and the track cools, he removes his helmet, face marked by fatigue and revelation. For the first time in years, Toprak Razgatlıoğlu is learning how to fall again and rise differently. The silence in a Pramac Yamaha garage feels different now, sharper, emptier, like a room that once held laughter and now hums with protocol. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu sits on the pit wall, his gaze lost between the glimmering carbon fairings and the void left by a man who isn't there. Phil Marin, the voice that once translated chaos into clarity, remains in WorldSBK with BMW, tuning the bike for Miguel Oliveira, the very rider Toprak replaces. Fate, it seems, has a twisted sense of humor. We've been through everything together, he whispers to himself, a confession swallowed by the mechanical chorus of compressors and torque wrenches. In this new world, loyalty has no horsepower. Yamaha's decision was surgical, not sentimental. Marin hadn't touched a MotoGP machine since 2016, and the sport had evolved into a different species. The executives spoke in rational tones about data ecosystems, ride height algorithms, and aerodynamic telemetry maps. He's a great crew chief, but not for this era, they said, as if erasing a friendship required only a technical justification. Toprak nodded in public, but inside, the rebellion was loud. His new crew chief, Alberto Garibuola, the man who once guided Enea Bastianini to victories, arrived with the calm precision of a scientist, his sentences built like torque values. "We'll learn each other," Garibuola told him on day one, offering a handshake that felt both genuine and rehearsed. Beneath professionalism, Toprak sensed the politics. He was not Yamaha's headline act now, but a project, a test subject in the satellite ecosystem. In superbikes, he commanded. Here, he complied. The contrast is cruel. A little-known tension simmers inside the garage. Yamaha's engineers have restricted the data-sharing pipeline between factory and satellite teams, meaning Toprak's feedback travels slower, filtered through hierarchy. "I used to be the storm. Now I'm the ripple," he thinks while watching the engineers huddle around screens that never look up. Yet even within the hierarchy's cold order, there's a strange liberation. Failure is allowed, expectations are softer, and discovery feels dangerous again. Each night, the paddock sleeps under a sky full of fluorescent light, and Toprak writes mental notes for a reunion that might never come. One day he hopes he and Marin will meet again, armed with knowledge and vengeance disguised as curiosity. The politics of MotoGP are invisible gears turning behind the spectacle. Contracts, egos, whispered alliances. They decide who learns faster and who is allowed to dream. But even stripped of his old kingdom, Toprak remains defiant in quiet ways, through precision, through patience, through that flicker in his eyes that no rulebook can suppress. He realizes that every champion must lose his crown once to understand its weight. The metaphor breathes in him like exhaust after rain. He is not dethroned, merely being reforged. And when the lights go out at the Qatar opener, when his visor closes over the ache of all that's been taken, he will remember only this. Power isn't granted by hierarchy. It's rebuilt from silence. Under the cold fluorescence of paddock, Toprak Razgatlıoğlu stares at a blank space on his leathers where the number 54 should be, and for a second, he feels like a man without a name. That number was not decoration. It was biography, an amulet stitched into victories, burnouts, and champagne-soaked nights that told the story of who he was before this new beginning. "It's tough, but I have some ideas for a new number," he admits with a faint smile, the kind that hides a bruise rather than a secret. Losing it is more than a bureaucratic inconvenience. It's a small death of identity. Somewhere in another garage, Fermin Aldegar has it tattooed on his arm, and fate has made the mark permanent. Yamaha tries to soften the blow with sentiment. They gift him his 2021 championship-winning R1, polished like memory itself. When he runs a hand along its tank, he can almost hear the echoes of the crowd that once called his name in rhythm with that machine's riffs. It feels like saying goodbye to a former version of himself, one who never questioned his place among the fastest. Who am I without the number that carried me here? He wonders, feeling the question lodge deep, heavy as lead. In this new world, symbols change but doubts remain. He confides to the press that 2026 will be the most difficult year of his life, and everyone nods, but few understand the quiet panic behind that statement. Here, the glory of superbikes becomes a shadow of expectation, and fighting for 10th place demands more humility than winning ever did. His mind, once wired for domination, must now learn the art of endurance, the patience to lose gracefully while building strength unseen. Yamaha engineers read data. He reads himself, line by line, like a book being rewritten mid-chapter. A little-known habit comforts him. Before each session, he still touches the left handlebar first, a superstition carried from his early days in Turkey, a gesture of belonging amid change. Yet MotoGP's atmosphere is colder, sharper, less forgiving of sentiment. He watches Marc Marquez defend Bezzecchi from fan abuse and nods in quiet respect, recognizing courage that doesn't need speed to exist. It reminds him that integrity, too, can be a form of performance. The days ahead will not be about victories but resilience, not trophies but transformation. His new number, whatever it becomes, will not replace 54. It will eclipse it by necessity, carved from struggle instead of triumph. "I'll find meaning in the fight itself," he tells himself as the lights of the circuit dim around him, leaving only the sound of the wind and memory. Because beneath the carbon fiber and the fame, he understands this brutal truth of the sport he loves. Sometimes the hardest lap is the one where you learn who you are without winning. The first time Toprak Razgatlıoğlu leans the MotoGP prototype into turn 3 at Aragon, the data doesn't understand what his body already knows. The telemetry shows erratic braking pressure, but the truth is subtler. His fingers speak a dialect of physics no algorithm can yet translate. "I don't ride with numbers. I ride with feeling," he says afterward, a quiet challenge to the sterile screens that now dictate everything. Yamaha's engineers smile politely, but behind the glass, they adjust torque maps and throttle response curves, trying to capture that elusive human rhythm inside binary precision. The 2026 bike behaves like a restless animal, brutal on entry, hesitant at apex, and uncertain on exit, and Toprak treats it not as a machine, but as a conversation partner that doesn't yet listen. His braking technique, once worshipped in WorldSBK, now exposes the fragile balance between chaos and control. The MotoGP carbon discs react too sharply, the Michelin carcass too nervously. With these brakes, 1 millimeter too much and the bike closes, he explains, his tone halfway between awe and frustration. A little-known adjustment he requested early on involved reshaping the brake master cylinder pivot to alter lever feel by 3 degrees, giving him more modulation under load, his fingerprints literally altering the machine. To him, every component has a temperament. The clutch sulks under heat, the front tire sulks under doubt, and the throttle whispers lies when tired. The Yamaha V4 is brutally fast in theory, but emotionally inconsistent in practice, its torque curve swelling unpredictably, like a tide that doesn't respect the moon. Toprak learns to read it not through data sheets, but through vibration, his internal gyroscope parsing feedback that no sensor detects. Can I trust something that doesn't trust me yet? The thought passes, brief as a flicker between gears. This is the paradox of MotoGP modernity. Precision built on unpredictability, technology searching for a soul. Engineers call it adaptation. He calls it empathy. The paddock sees telemetry spikes. He feels heartbeat stutters. It's not rebellion, just a reminder that instinct still belongs in an era of simulation. Every bike has a secret, he says one night, oil-stained and smiling. You just have to listen until it tells you what it wants. Under the floodlights, the Yamaha hums back, a machine learning the sound of its own faith. In that fleeting harmony between man and metal, the test day ends not with answers, but with understanding. Because for Toprak, mastery isn't control, it's conversation. Night settles over the empty paddock like a velvet confession, soft yet suffocating. The circuit lights dim, leaving only the echo of engines that once screamed truths louder than words. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu sits alone beside his Yamaha, helmet resting on the tank, the smell of hot metal fading into memory. The season ahead is no longer a promise. It's a verdict waiting to be written in thousandths of a second. MotoGP is another planet, he told the press weeks earlier, a phrase that sounded casual, but hid a deeper awe, almost reverence. Now that planet feels close enough to touch yet impossible to hold. Around him, the paddock hums with stories of others who came and broke against the wall of prototypes, names once brilliant now forgotten under the noise of progress. He refuses to be one of them. The mechanics have gone, the data screens shut down, but in the silence he still hears the rhythm of laps he hasn't ridden yet. Can I be myself here, or must I become someone else to survive? The question lingers, uninvited but necessary. The truth is that MotoGP does not forgive adaptation, it demands transformation. Every braking zone is a philosophy test, every acceleration a confession of trust. His mind replays the feedback sessions, the calm voice of Jiribiola reciting split times and torque adjustments, and he wonders how much of himself remains uncalibrated. Yamaha's vision for 2027 already floats in the background. New tires, new engines, new riders, but his story unfolds in the fragile now. The psychological toll of transition has carved humility into his confidence, but also clarity into his ambition. He no longer chases dominance. He chases depth, the precision of being utterly present. A little-known ritual has emerged from these nights. Before leaving the garage, he traces a fingertip along the Yamaha's logo, whispering, "Let's learn." It isn't superstition, it's respect, an acknowledgement that greatness grows in the quiet between failure and faith. The sports politics, the technology, the noise, they all fade when the visor drops and the lights flash red to black. In those 2 seconds, the world narrows to a breath and a heartbeat. That's where the Real story begins, stripped of narrative and expectation, reduced to human while meeting mechanical truth. If I finish 10th, I'll still be learning. If I finish 5th, I'll still be hungry, he told Speed Week, smiling with a tired grace that only champions possess. The engineers call him the variable. He calls himself the believer. MotoGP, for all its data and design, still boasts a courage, and courage is something no telemetry can measure. As dawn rises over Aragon, the track glows with dew, and his reflection in the visor looks older, sharper, quieter. There is no guarantee of victory, only the certainty of effort. Yet in that certainty lies the spark that defines legends, the refusal to be reduced by transition. The wind carries a faint echo of engines across the stands, and he whispers to the empty air, "I'm not done yet." And maybe that's the truest thing he's ever said. Because for Toprak Razgatlıoğlu, the finish line was never a place, it was always a promise to keep moving. When the lights go out in Qatar and 24 engines inhale the same breath of destiny, one sound will cut through them all, the raw, untamed heartbeat of Toprak Razgatlıoğlu. A man forged in the violent poetry of breaking zones, stepping into a universe where instinct meets algorithm and courage is measured in tenths. His journey from the asphalt jungles of WorldSBK to MotoGP's titanium temples isn't a transfer, it's an exorcism. The familiar R1 symphony is gone. In its place roars Yamaha's newborn V4, unpredictable, brilliant, still bleeding through its own rebirth. The bike doesn't yet know his language, and Toprak must teach it through the grammar of feel, through lean angles that defy geometry and braking markers that flirt with oblivion. Here, 1 millimeter too late is disaster, and 1 degree too early is surrender. His hands, once conductors of chaos, now sculpt data into faith. His number, his team, his world, all stripped away, leaving only a man, a machine, and a silence before acceleration. Every corner will question his identity. Every lap will test if artistry can survive inside machinery that breathes logic instead of emotion. The Yamaha's telemetry may record pressure, torque, and velocity, but it will never capture the tremor in his heart as carbon discs ignite under his fingertips. I don't ride with numbers. I ride with feeling. That defiance is his weapon, his signature, his sin. Because in this new galaxy of wings, sensors, and surgical precision, Toprak rides like a meteor refusing to be charted. He's not here to adapt, he's here to disrupt. And when the first race begins, the world will witness not just a debut, but collision between science and soul. This isn't a rider joining MotoGP. It's MotoGP meeting emotion at 350 kilometers per hour, where telemetry ends and legend begins.